आवाज नहीं आ रही।
मैडम ये मनोज लिंक मेल को मत लिंक लिंक मेल को लिंक
हेलो।
अरे मुझे लिंक को कमाओ मेल को लिंक लिंक ये जो लिंक जूम लिंक हां कोई कोड पड़ेगा से फॉरनोटा से कनेक्ट कर पारनो ना हां इंस्ट्रक्शन कौन से जूम कौन सब व्हाट्सएप में ईमेल करिया मत ईमेल करो मत ईमेल करो इमेल तन कर लिंक का खाली लिंक
डॉक्टर साहब आज सफाई अभियान में लगा के है हाँ हाँ बुढ़ी है तो आप पोता हूँ राउंड में बोली जाए तो बंदी वो नालो नीचे खुल तो यार सिद्धू नहीं शंबर है ये हेलो
Hello, good afternoon, party sir.
हेलो
Hello, can you hear me?
yes I can
Hello,
yes
am I audible?
yes yes
Yes, audible, sir.
Yes, yes, sir. Thank you so very much. I was just gasping for breath.
मैडम 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 हाँ देव सर
कैमरा आप पर चुका ତା ପାଖରେ
लाइट मुश्किल है
कुमार बाबू नमस्कार कुमार बाबू
मैडम नमस्कार।
हाँ देरी बाबू नमस्कार। गीता पाड़ी बाबू हाँ नमस्कार। गीता मैडम सिप्रा
हाँ मैडम नमस्कार।
नमस्कार।
हेलो
हाँ अच्छा हमारा प्रोफेसर केबी दास कनेक्टेड है कि देखिले हाँ हाँ
So it starts the meeting. Very good morning to one and all. I welcome you all to this inaugural session of the International E-Conference on Impact of COVID-19 on Economy, Global and India, organized by the Department of Social Science University in collaboration with Indian Economic Association. I welcome our Honorable Vice Chancellor, Dr. Patamita Das, to inaugurate the e-conference through this Zoom platform. He is a very dynamic, kind-hearted, and good human being. She is a frontline geologist of India Under our leadership, University has opened 10 new departments with due approval from the government of Odisha. He always inspires the faculties of the university to organize webinar, seminar, publications, and other academic activities. I'm grateful to her with the support to organize this e-conference. I also welcome esteemed Chairman Professor Sachidananda Devi sir to this e-conference through Zoom platform. I'm grateful to her inspiration and motivation to us to organize this conference. I also welcome Professor Ghanshyam Singh, President Indian Economic Association. He is a prominent economist of India. I express my gratitude to him for his support to collaborate this e-conference with Indian Economic Association. I salute him for his generous words in accepting my request. I also welcome our international guest, Professor Mohan.
Sir.
From University of Connecticut, United States of America, into this e-conference. We are proud to get her as an international speaker, and I really appreciate her commitment to join us in spite of odd hour in America. I salute her for accepting our request to speak in this occasion. My hearty welcome to Professor K.V. Das, former Vice Chancellor of Fakir University and prominent economist. He always support our department to organize international events. During his tenure as Vice Chancellor of Fakir University, he got this wonderful building of Department of Social Science. I also welcome Professor Anup Pant from Sarda University, New Delhi, to this e-conference. I am thankful to him for accepting my request to share his valuable views on this e-conference. I also welcome Professor Sushanta Mahapatra of ICMA into this conference. I welcome the faculty members of different universities for joining us. I also welcome the research scholars, students, participants to this webinar. Now, I request our Honorable Vice Chancellor of Professor Madhumita Das Madam to address this occasion. Vice Chancellor Madam.
Namaskar. I am audible.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, madam.
Namaskar. A very good morning to all of you. On behalf of Fakir University, I extend a hearty welcome to all the dignitaries and all the participants who have joined with us today in this webinar. I must congratulate also Dr. Sunil Kumar Padhi, the head of the department, for organizing this international webinar, and also I congratulate all the faculty members of the Department of Social Science for organizing this international webinar after they have conducted successfully one national webinar also. This proves that in spite of the COVID-19 pandemic, we are moving ahead with a very good speed. And then I think after the COVID-19 is over also, we will be organizing such webinars in the new normal situation also. So I take this opportunity on behalf of Fakir University to welcome our esteemed resource persons, Professor Ghanshyam Singh, Professor Constance from US, and Professor Kumar Baradas, our former Vice Chancellor, Fakir University, and Professor Anup Pal and Professor Sushanta Kumar Mahapatra for kindly agreeing to join this webinar and giving their valuable time to encourage our faculty members and particularly our young students. When we talk about this COVID-19 pandemic, it has created a havoc to our social, cultural, as well as our economic condition. Not only it started from a very small place, city like Yuan, and it has across 213 countries across the globe. So, and it has not spared the young and the old. It has not spared the men and women across the gender, across the caste, across the race. And I think from this COVID-19, we also must take a lesson that in the entire world, there is only one religion, that is the religion of humanity. So all the crises, all the adversities also give us some good lessons, and we must take these positive lessons from the COVID-19, and we should move ahead in life. When I talk about the situation that they have chosen the topic, I think in the economic scenario of our nation, each economic condition of any nation depends upon four pillars. The four pillars are consumption, manufacturing, export, and capital flow. When we talk about consumption, now due to this pandemic COVID-19, the entire globe is in lockdown. So the manufacturing industries are suffering, and it is at its minimal condition. Similarly, consumption is low. All the malls, all the stores, all the big shops are closed. We are getting only limited groceries, and also groceries are being delivered at our home. So the consumption is less, manufacturing is less, and also the export and the capital flow, they have gone into a paused mode. They have also stopped, and they have also minimum because of this lockdown, because there is no travel, there is no international export, and the economic condition entirely across the globe has suffered also in our country. Talking about all sectors like the farmers, the cultivators, the small scale industries, everything, the medicine shops, everything, they are also suffering. Also added to that also, we have another special problem in Odisha especially, that is due to the migrants. So due to migrants also, the economic condition of our state has also shattered a little bit. So I would like to say that to our, specifically the young students, not to worry at all. And we have taken this pandemic situation in a positive way. And this webinar, think of this webinar. Previously we were organizing seminars in a physical mode. Now we are acquainted with this webinar. From now on, and the teachers are now taking online classes. After the COVID-19 also, when normal situation will also be there, we will continue to have online classes. That means the new system of education, be it in college, be it in university, it will have a blended mode. Traditional teaching taking the help of technology. So instead of traditional classroom, we will have flipped classroom. So I request all the teachers, we have to focus on three things. We have to change our curriculum, we have to change our infrastructure facilities, and the teachers have to change the mode of teaching, and the students have also to be very well prepared to take their online classes in a different mode. So we have to focus on as well teaching, as well as the teachers, as well as the students, as well as the curriculum. So India government is also trying in the coming sectors. I think the small scale, the medium scale, and the small industries will come up. They will come up with a Zoom, and we will revive our economic condition. What I see in India, the next in future, the textile industries, the gems and jewelry section that comes from the mineral sector, the pharma sector, the engineering, and also the electronics are our future sectors to come up in a big way. And I also think besides our traditional energy sector, the future energy sector will depend upon our solar energy. The India is also already has alliances with some tropical countries, but I think in the future days, coming days, India will have alliance with all the countries across the globe for these solar energy alliances. So also we are focusing, next will be our, now we are entirely, our 100% focus is on healthcare facilities, but the next will be how to provide financial security to the poor, the downtrodden, who are a very vulnerable sector of our society. So I think with this, I think all the distinguished academicians are there with us. They will share their views, how to revive the economy, how to come back to the normal situation, how to maintain sustainability in a very sound economic manner, and we will have deliberations from them, and let us look forward for a very India or an Atmanirbhar Bharat. I think India, our Prime Minister Narendra Modi, he has taken a very good step, because India is trying to be self-reliant and we are trying to turn inwards, but we are trying to make ourselves self-sufficient, and in the coming days, India will prove itself to be the global center of supply chain. Again, we will have the, as regards higher education is concerned, I am very positive and I am hopeful that we will regain that name and fame in the 5th and 6th centuries. The Nalanda and Taxila universities had. Again, we will have that name and fame, and we will control the entire world. With this positive note, I again congratulate the organizers, and I thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. Thank you, Dr. Padi, and all others.
Thank you, madam, for your deliberation on this issue. Now, I request our chairman, PG Council, Professor Sachidananda Deuri sir, to address to this occasion. Professor Sachidananda Deuri sir, Chairman, PG Council.
Namaskar to all. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Yes. My video is reaching to all?
Yes, yes, sir.
Okay. So, good morning to one and all connected to this international e-conference on impact of COVID-19 on economy, global and India, jointly organized by PG Department of Social Science of Fakir Mohan University and Indian Economic Association. Honorable Professor Madhumita Das Madam, our esteemed Vice Chancellor, a geologist and also a popular administrator among us. Honorable our former Vice Chancellor, Professor Kumar Baradas Sir, he is also an economist of repute. Honorable Professor Ghanshyam Singh Sir, President of Indian Economic Association. Esteemed, honorable speakers or resource person of this international e-conference, Professor Constant, Professor Sushant Kumar Naik, and Professor Pant and Professor Mahapatra, and respected head of the department, Dr. Sunil Kumar Padi, and his team, and my other colleagues, and my dear participants. At the outset, I extend a very warm welcome to all of you on behalf of the university and my own behalf. Today, I am extremely happy and feeling a great honor that I got a chance to share few words in this e-platform where reputed economists are going to share their experiences on the status of Indian economy and global economy during COVID-19 situation. It is realized by all of us that a very great disruption has been occurred in every sphere of our life due to this novel coronavirus, COVID-19. This teeny and invisible virus in naked eye, of course, is greatly accepted as a dangerous, very dangerous one, and has snatched everything from us, like starting from independence to everything. Now, the moment we are talking about economy, Indian or global context, we are realizing that this pandemic almost broken the backbone of economy.
Sorry, sir, excuse me, sir, it is not audible.
Okay, sorry,
Now audible.
now audible. Okay. Now, once again, I'm repeating. Now, the moment we are talking about economy, Indian or global context, we are realizing that this pandemic almost broken the backbone of economic activities across the globe. Hoping this platform can help to policymakers for critically thinking how to bring back the economic activities to original form. It is a point to be noted here that during this type of crisis, all of us, not only economists, should think from nano level, not from macro or micro level, to bring back the economic activities to normal. Since array of experts are connected to this e-conference and they are waiting their turn, so I should respect their valuable time as well as I should respect the valuable time of organizing team. With this, let me present as a tradition, let me present my university very briefly to the participants who are not the family members of this university. Of course, I am always presenting my university very briefly, and today is also I am presenting my university very briefly. So this university, I mean Fakir Mohan University, is a state-run university established by the government of Odisha in the year 1999, and named after Vyasakavi Fakir Mohan Senapati, a great Odia poet, writer, philosopher, as well as social reformer. Right now, it is functioning in two campuses. Vyasavihar Old Campus located at Januganj, and Vyasavihar New Campus located at Mitrapur. Both campuses are 14 kilometers away from each other. We have 18 regular PG departments. Out of 18, 6 departments are functioning in Old Campus, including DDC and examination wing of the university. However, the rest of the departments, including other administrative offices, healthcare centers, residential complex, etc., are functioning at New Campus. The university is also accredited by NAC with B+ grade in the first cycle. I'm always repeating this because it is very, very important for us to get funds from different agencies and also to place this university to a very good position in the globe. And we are putting our best effort to get better grade in upcoming cycle. Besides this, this small and beautiful university has not only gained popularity in national level, but also recognized in international level by the effort of our esteemed faculty members and also because of their path-breaking research. well as it is interesting to note that even in this worst situation, our faculty members have published a great many number of research papers in the form of, journal papers, proceeding papers, chapters in books, etc. Few of these outcomes are directly linked on how to get rid from this odd situation. Also, it is to be noted that this pandemic would not stop us to think and practically implement how best our teaching learning system should reach to each and individual students of this university, or maybe rest of the part of the group. Also, it is learned that how to conduct conferences, seminars, etc. without spending money during this pandemic period. This is also a great lesson because earlier we were spending lakhs of rupees to conduct a conference, but fortunately or unfortunately, this pandemic forced us to learn how to conduct an international conference or international webinar, seminar or workshop without spending, money, or maybe, zero money. So here, with a concluding point, I must say, novel coronavirus never win the race. This virus will definitely lose the game. And again, our Indian economy will come to right track very shortly. I hope this conference will be a very successful one, and all participants can get maximum benefit. With this, I extend my heartfelt thanks to the President, Indian Economic Association, for this kind support to organize this event. Also, I congratulate Dr. Padhi and his team, whole team, for organizing such a beautiful international conference. Thank you, Dr. Padhi, for giving me an opportunity to say a few words. Vande Utkala Janani, Namaskar to all. My turn is over.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your valuable speech. I congratulate you for delivering such a speech in this occasion. Now I request my dear colleague, Professor Sachidanand Sir, co-convener of this seminar, to speak on the theme of the over to Sachidanand.
A very good morning to all of you. I, Dr. Sachidanand Sir, welcome you all to our international e-conference on the impact of COVID-19 on economy, global and India. As you know, the world has been affected by novel coronavirus pandemic since November 2019. The UN Secretary General described it as the worst crisis being faced by mankind since World War II. The disease rapidly spread to most of the countries of the world and become pandemic within a short span of time. The lightning spread of the disease across the world is due to very high degree of global economic integrations and boom in the international movement of people. The COVID-19 pandemic has spread with alarming speed, infecting millions and bringing economic activity to a near standstill as countries tight restrictions on the movement to halt the spread of the virus. As the health and human will grow, the economic damage is already evident and represents the largest economic shock the world has experienced in decades. In June 2020, global economic prospects estimated a 5.2% contraction in global GDP in 2020. Globally, the number of new reported cases continues to grow. Despite the low incidence of the virus in certain regions, the impact of the pandemic has been felt across countries, societies, and the economy. The pandemic has changed the lives of 7.8 billion people in the world, prompting governments and citizens to start rethinking how life should be in a new normal. COVID-19 has triggered massive disruptions in economies, jobs, and livelihoods. According to the latest UNDP report, with the outbreak of this pandemic, around 40 to 60 million people will be pushed into extreme poverty. About 1.6 billion informal workers have already lost 60% of their income. Global trade value will be declining from 3% in the first quarter to 27% in the second quarter of this current year. About 260 million people in low and middle income countries will be at risk of acute food insecurity by the end of 2020. And most importantly, tourism is considered one of the hardest hits by this COVID-19 outbreak, with an estimated loss of $910 billion to 1.2 trillion in export revenue from tourism. The economic shocks have hurt the countries before the health shocks through macroeconomic transmission channels and will continue to persist after health crisis is over. The outbreak of COVID-19 pandemic is an unprecedented shock to the Indian economy. The economy was already in parlor state before COVID-19 struck. With the prolonged countrywide lockdown, global economic downturn, and associated disruption of demand and supply chains, the economy is likely to face a protracted period of slowdown. The pandemic has inflicted huge blow to Indian economy, and its GDP is expected to go down to negative. It has also put huge pressure on fiscal health of the country. Among the various sections, the worst sufferers are the migrant workers, poor households, marginal farmers, artisans, traders, and those involved in tourism and hospitality industries. In this background, the International E-Conference has been proposed to discuss and debate the impact of pandemic on global economy with special reference to India and suggest strategies to minimize the adverse economy. With this concept note, may I request Dr. Sunil Kumar Padhi to introduce our distinguished speakers. Over to Dr. Padhi.
Thank you, Dr. Sachidananda Shah, for your valuable views on the concept note on the theme. Before going to introduce the guest, let me speak something on Indian Economic Association, with which we are collaborating this program. I'm really grateful to Professor Ghanshyam Singh, President of Indian Economic Association, Agarwal, Vice President, Indian Economic Association, Professor Dinesh Kumar, Secretary, Indian Economic Association, and Dr. Indu Varsani, Treasurer, Indian Economic Association, for providing us necessary approval to collaborate this program with Indian Economic Association. I would like to speak something on the Indian Economic Association. The journey of the Indian Economic Association began in 1970 through a conclave of teachers of economics held in Calcutta, convened by Professor C.J. Hamilton. The period was just aftermath of the First World War, and the British Raj of undivided India just recovered from the severe nationalist movement that ensued the partition of Bengal province in 1905 by Lord Curzon. The prevailing orthodoxy of discourses of economics, a leading center of learning across the world, was the classical political economy with neoclassical resurgence of Alfred Marshall and Arthur Pico, making visible impact on economic theory and policy discussion. The world economy was in turmoil, and so was the condition of Indian economy and society. The British government was not particularly interested in the economic development in its colonies. The improvement in living condition of the people were not in the main agenda of the government. Communication was weak across the globe and definitely within the Indian subcontinent, and therefore networking was difficult between regions as well as between persons. The object of the Indian Economic Association are academic and include holding of annual conferences, publication of the proceedings of the annual conferences, publication of a journal, and its free issue to members. Such other actions to promote economic science and dissemination of economic information as may be deemed advisable. Now I would like to introduce Professor Ghanshyam Narayan Singh Ji, President of Indian Economic Association. Professor Singh has widely traveled and well-known economist of India. He has got the credit of little more than 130 research papers published and presented at both national and international research journals of India and abroad. Has a credit of 8 well-known books, including Environmental Economics in 1991, the first title on the subject based on a lecture delivered to the trained university teachers of South Asian teachers held at Kamaraj University, Madurai. Second one is Structural Changes in India in 1994, edited volume of Presidential Speeches of Indian Economic Association President, assigned and published by Indian Economic Association. The third book is on Economy of SAARC Nation, published in 1993. He has attended, presented papers, and even chaired at 5 World Congress of Economics and Sociologists. He has visited Mexico City, European countries, USA, UAE, on number of occasions on academic assignment. He is an active life member of Indian Economic Association since 1965. He served as deputy chairman, convener of Crisis Management Group, and also its academic assignment. He is an active life member of Indian Economic Association since 1965. Also an active life member of IASSI in 1995 and served it in various capacities. Professor Singh Sir also a life member of number of national study and research, including Indian Institute of Public Administration, chairman of its local branch for a number of years till today, former member, editorial board of leading professional journals of economics and social science, member and then chairman of National Minimum Wage Board of Government of India. He has served more than half a dozen professional bodies in various capacities, besides member of Search Committee of Vice Chancellor Selections and Selection Board of Leaders and Professor of Universities of India. Now I request Professor Singh Sir to present his deliberation. Professor Singh Sir.
Thank you very much. Yeah. Are you getting me? Getting me? Thank you very much. I must congratulate, thanks rather, Sunil Padi for having very generous introducing me. Well, I'm very humble servant of the Economic Society and Economic Fraternity. But before I could address the issue that has been taken up, I would like to congratulate Sunil Padi and FM University, who has given an opportunity to associate us in a seminar, international seminar, impact of COVID-18 on economy, global and India. I must congratulate Madhumita Das, who has given a very exhaustive lecture on the issue that is coming up and on which different aspects of the issue we will be going to discuss. Sunil Padhi has built up a very good team, and I must say that this FM University has got a very special place in my heart because I have been there several times and I am associated with it at the time, since the time of my good friend Kumar B. Das, who has been the Vice Chancellor of the university, and he did lot to build the university and make the academic curriculum very effective. I think he must be here also, and he will be giving his talk also. Well, Sunil Padhi has built up a team where Sajjanand Deori, Geetanjali Pandey, whom I know personally also, and all other who are participating in the conference. Well, I would like to say that about my own team, that in Indian Economic Association, we have a very effective and dedicated team now that is working with Dinesh Kumar as our secretary, Indu Vaishnav as the treasurer, and lot of other Dushyant, Angresh Singh and all that. They are doing, and overall guidance of Ajay Tomar, they are doing day in and night to conduct webinar, visual interaction, and do something to enrich the academic activities during this pandemic crisis, when we are not in touch which is very regular in other conferences and all that. Well, I would like to address the issue that has come up for our discussion. Impact of COVID-18 on economy, India and the globe, that is the world. But I must say that my specific, I like to be specific about the pandemic from Indian point of view, that is today and tomorrow. But before that, I must say that pandemic COVID has got, it is not a region specific. Rather, it is a global problem which is coming up everywhere. Few days back, you might have seen that the IMF, World Bank also said that world economy is bleeding. So is the case of a specific Indian economy and all economy of the world. However, we must know the mischief of this COVID has been created by one of the countries who wanted to have their supremacy, economic supremacy, and for that to want to put other nations in the danger. That is bad. And consequences, whenever you do a thing which evil design, then you have to face the consequences. That irritant country from where coronavirus developed and went all over the world and damaging the whole economic fabric of the world, that country is also being isolated. I don't want to name it, but we all know at which this country is and how that country has behaved in the past and what the consequences will come up. In fact, this COVID-18 has given challenges to the world. Challenges to the world, challenges to India, and after that, we are now it is up to the nation as such to how these challenges can be converted into an opportunity. And in that context, I must say that India is fortunate to having a prime minister, very visibly prime minister, who is taking all the steps to make this opportunity, these challenges, convert these challenges into an opportunity. The reason being, you see, that we were depending IT sector and all that, we were depending so much on China. And now, because of this only, and also because of the cross-border terrorism, also because of the cross-border and the other evil design of our evil network, we have developed, we are trying our best to stop all our import that were coming from the different countries, that is particularly of the China. IT sector was one where China got the supremacy, and through that they want to not only to penetrate into the Indian economy, rather the minds of the people, and that was destroying the whole fabric of economic thinking. So that way we have developed in a very big way, because now 2 days back you also seen that in defense sector also we are going to do what we call the local product or the national product. Nationalism has gone very high, and in that context we are happy to see that it is because of the COVID-19 and all other that India has got a very good global response from all over the country, and China, which which has harmed the economy of the world with their evil design, is being isolated. No one is now stand with China except the Pakistan, which has got a different, they have got inner, what we call the underhand dealing with that. And that way, what you know, that China by nature, they are expansionist. Expansion, what we call, Prime Minister rightly said, that they are still in new way, they are an empire, they are trying to control they want to control the territory of the other countries also. So, while this corona has slowed down the economy, and because of that, we are now trying to revive it, and we will revive it. Not only when I mean we do not mean that India as such. In the present world where we are standing today, India is along with the other countries of the world, except that of the China. Every country is supporting it a different way, ideologically, economically, morally, and all that. Even also, you find that China has been isolated, so is the Pakistan, because Pakistan has got, their economy is very weak, they have to control their economy. And now, 2 days back also, yesterday only we have seen the Saudi Arabia, that was the main exporter of crude oil to the Pakistan, they are stopping it. So that way I can say that India is in a better position to control its economy, to take care of the whole that what is coming. Well, the main problem that has come up in India is the migration of the labor from the different, because particularly the state like Bihar, UP, Odisha also, to a great extent, the people were going for the job for different areas. Say, for example, metropolitan cities, Chennai, Mumbai and all that. But they were forced to come back migrated to their homeland, because they found their place there in the home. So in that context, I remember one thing that is very important to share, that Abdul Kalam Azad, what we said years ago, that urban facilities should go to the rural area, and that way we can enrich our economy. So we are doing the same now. Now we are going to all over the countries, all over the states where this is the main problem. Migrant labor are coming, and now migration reverse gear is also coming. Because you see, in last 2 days we find that various private sector organization of Chennai, Hyderabad, Mumbai, they are giving lot of incentive like air ticket and all other, so that the reverse migration is also coming up. But in this situation, the state itself, which were in the back of the ladder of development, they have developed their own. They try to exert the technology, that is skill that is available in the migrant labor, to develop them, to use them at the local level. And local is now becoming vocal, not because not at the national level only, but at the local level also. Meaning thereby, in the state like Bihar, the state like UP, where the pressure of population was very much, and now labor were migrating to other places for getting jobs, they are coming back. And whatsoever the quantity of the labor that have come back, they are getting their skill are being used by local agencies, and that is the additional point, so that now the rural economy is going to get a place of importance in coming days to come. Not only that, what I want to say that that in urban sector now, people feel that yes, infrastructure is going to be built in a very high way, very big way, so that they are not only their skill and agriculture, which was the prime sector for the Bihar and UP and all that, which was previously Bimari state that is called, that is not there, that is now has become a issue of the past, or terminology of the past, that is not there now, but that is coming up, and that we find that these things will be in the future will enrich the economy of the local backward state also, where development less developed country state region also, and it will be in a big way developing increase the output of the nation as such. So pandemic today has created a crisis. A crisis is, see, COVID, the issue that have come, see, Janta curfew that have come on lockdown, but on lockdown has got the reverse effect also. Because of the lockdown, people feel that we are on lockdown forever. And as a result of which, number of corona patients is coming up in going very increasing very at a very high rate. Bihar, which was on the last of the ladder, or little upper than the last level, they are coming up the top. So this is not the good thing that way. But anyway, now one has to see that corona is going to be, it has become a part of our life. We have to change our lifestyle. We must go with what we call the cover and all that. We must mask. We must keep mask also. We must keep the distance also. Though it is very difficult to maintain in the state where the density is very high, but people will be forced to do it because of the compulsion. So it is a discipline that will generate. A new discipline of keeping because of the spread of because of fear as such, the people will be forced to that. So the effect of corona was very great. It is going to be very great for years to come. But it has it has given a good result in the sense that it promotes the local employment, it promotes the local skill development, it promotes the agriculture sector. That 2 days back also you see the Prime Minister announced a big jump for the agriculture sector. That is going to invest it, to improve it. So that way the agriculture sector, which was the prime here in Bihar and all these states, that is going to generate capital, and it will take, of course, a time. Not that in 3 years it is going to do it. It will take some time, but time has for development. Time is not the prime sector, prime important. Time means that it will have to take its own way. So in this way, thank you very much for giving an opportunity. I must express my thanks to the FM University team, Madhumita Das, Satyanand Dwarari, Sunil Padhi, that is Sunil Padhi has done a marvelous work. I love him so much. Gitanjali Panda and all that. The Vice Chancellor also has taken a very deep interest in the scene. And after all, before I conclude it, I must thank my team, Dinesh Kumar as our secretary, Indi Vashne as our treasurer, and Ajay Tomar as he does not want to call himself a chief coordinator, but we wanted to make him because he is a guiding force in that, Angresh, Rana, and all that. So many persons I can't contact. My own Vice President Pramod Agrawal, BM Bhatt. Yeah, one thing is very important that I want to convey to this gathering, that we have got BM Bhatt a very expertise in the what we call the editing or taking the journal. We are going to all the collections that are coming up. I have requested him to take note of all that, collect the papers also from different places, and make it a theoretic presentation, because pandemic corona is becoming a very important issue in coming days also. It is not of today and all that, but in that way we are going to have a volume, very rich volume on this, that will fulfill, this is the fulfill the desire of the academician who are only listening now. They will be going to know as to what we discuss and what the deliberation, and in that way it will not be based on the deliberation itself. We will suggest as to how best in coming days, if some catastrophic situation will come, how can take care of, how we can cope it. So that's also we are going to have it. We are going to take it. Thank you very much for giving me so much time. I am really very thankful that they have got a long list of teachers and universities. They are requesting us to have their interaction, and because and our team is working very hard to make it a very interesting interaction. That is, on every Sunday we conduct a webinar, and in between we talk virtual conferences also, interact with the people and see as to how best we can take care during this coronavirus situation. Thank you very much. I hope all of my friends will enjoy it, whether it is to their mind, it may be appreciable or may not be. I thank once again all of them, especially Sunil Padhi, my own team, SM University, and all the persons who are listening. Thank you very much once again. बहुत बोले नहीं ना, ज्यादा नहीं, कितना बोला?
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your deliberation and a very fantastic speech given on the issue. And we have given very good insights into the problem which we are confronting today all over the world. Thank you, sir, once again. Now I request Dr. Sachidananda Shah to invite and introduce Professor Constance Devarat, University of Connecticut, USA. Over to Professor Shah.
Thank you, sir. It's a great privilege to have Professor Constance Devarat in our international e-conference. In spite of her busy schedule and odd timing, she accepted our invitations and could able to grace our international e-conference. On behalf of the Department of Social Science and Fakir University, I extend my heartfelt thanks to Professor Constance. Professor Constance Devarat is the Director of Arts and Management at University of Connecticut, USA. She is an Executive Editor of Journal of Arts Management and Cultural Policy, published by Transcript Verlag, and Assistant Chief Editor of the Journal of Arts Management. She has authored and edited numerous books and articles on arts and cultural policy. Many of them are enlisted in Scopus and elsewhere also. She has published extensively in the field of cultural policy. She is listed on the Fulbright Senior Specialist roster from the period 2015 to 20 as a cultural management and policy expert. She has got 3 times Fulbright Senior Specialist Grant Awards in the year 2006, 2008, and 2011 respectively. Apart from the Fulbright Awards, she was the recipient of Pop Foundation Award, National Headliners Award, National Endowment for Humanities Award, etc. She lectures frequently university in Europe, Asia, and Central Asia. As an independent consultant, she has provided expert advice to cultural organizations and university internationally. Constance is also an award-winning radio journalist and playwright. May I request Professor Constance to make her presentations. Over to Constance, madam.
Thank you very much. It's very much an honor to join you today with so many distinguished presenters, and I'm very happy to have been invited. As you heard from the introduction, my area of specialty is in cultural industries, and I also do consulting in higher education. So in considering my presentation, I thought I would comment on those areas in particular in the United States. I believe I can share my screen and conduct and control my own PowerPoint. If you give me one moment, let's see. So in considering what to talk about today, just bear with me one moment. I'm opening my.
Yes, yes, madam. You have the PowerPoint also. Just a minute, madam.
Yes, my apologies. It seems I can't share my screen with you in order to show that. But while we're trying to get that underway, let me go ahead and talk for in the interest of time.
Yes, madam.
So,
the PowerPoint is visible now. The PowerPoint is visible now.
Okay, great. Okay, all right. So if you don't mind just advancing it as I go. So I'm going to talk about culture and higher education after COVID-19. And the question that I want to address is whether we're seeing a seismic shift or a continuing trend. Of course, we all know the seriousness of COVID-19 and the devastation that has been caused by that. But the conversation that I'm hearing in the United States is that it has done great harm to the arts and great harm to universities. And in considering this, I actually think that it may not be the case. So the next slide, please. Well, let me just go ahead and go on. So I see higher education and cultural industries as indicators that are microcosms of larger trends in society because they touch in some way all sectors of society. Of course, not everyone goes to university, but universities touch many lives outside of that. Higher education institutions and institutions that deliver arts and cultures are typically more slow to respond to system changes. And so it means that we can look at them a little bit more closely compared to the rapidity in other sectors. So in the for-profit commercial sector of the economy, you see rapid changes because of commercialization, but universities and cultural institutions tend to change much more slowly. So it allows us to take a look at what's going on in order to see how it's affecting those institutions, but also how it's affecting society at large. They are also very resistant to change. Those of you in universities know that universities in general are resistant to change, especially change for change's sake. They are also very human capital intensive and they're inherently international. So that means that, again, they're good indicators of society at large. Within the current perspective, as I said earlier, we see that many people are predicting huge losses for universities and huge losses for arts and cultural industry as a result of COVID-19. At the same time, however, we have people who are saying that that although very few people would have predicted that universities would face such a paradigm shift, and that we see financial blows raining down on nations' colleges. At the same time, my thesis, taking from other parts of the conversation, are that the pandemic has only accelerated changes that were already taking place. and that the reaction to COVID is not a seismic shift, but it's where we were already headed. Okay, so why is that important to think about? Well, I think in order to take charge of the current circumstances and future developments, we have to know if we are in the midst of novel transformations, or are we in a continuing trend of developments already put in motion? The answer matters for training of emerging leaders, for development of markets, for guiding social developments, and for preparing management and technology systems. So what I want to do is talk a little bit about history and where we've been with technology. That gives us an indication of where we are now and where we might be going in the future. Some of you already know this history because it's well known in the world, but let me go ahead and review it anyway. In the early 1960s was when the Worldwide Computer Network was first contemplated, and major breakthroughs in connectivity happened between the early 60s and the late 70s. Online education in the form of the intranet dated from that time at the University of Indiana. The term internet that we all know now was coined in the 1970s. And in the 1980s, the first online courses and online degrees were offered in the US. For myself, I've actually been teaching online since the early 2000s. Also, we want to recognize that recorded performance, exhibition have been possible from the first days of audio and video recordings. In fact, live broadcasting of the Metropolitan Opera in New York began in 1931 and was heard all over the United States and continues today. It's the longest running radio program in the United States. Also, the first major exhibition of net art happened in 2000 at the Whitney Biennial. My point in talking about that is, again, to show that what we're seeing now is not something new. The adaptation to the internet, to delivering things online, to holding webinars is not a new thing. The difference, I think, is that in the early computer, internet, and web uses were not at full capacity. In fact, the way that we have been using these tools is to adapt them to our old habits rather than envisioning new ways with new capacities. Two quick examples: traditional lectures at universities delivered online in real time, just the way you do them in class. In other words, somebody just begins to record a presentation that you would do anyway, even if it wasn't COVID-19, instead of looking for new modes of knowledge delivery, which are entirely within our capacity with computers and internets, within the internet. Also, art displayed or performed on the internet, of course, is not new, but new ways of creating and presenting art that take advantage of technology so that the internet is the medium and not just a delivery system. So it is only recently that we are more fully exploring these possibilities. I also want to point out that much farther back in history, medieval universities didn't have physical central locations. In fact, lectures were held wherever you could find a place to give the lecture. And excellent instructors didn't attach themselves to just one university. They traveled around and students followed them. It wasn't until the early 2000s that there was a significant change in universities, because that's when they started branding themselves and changing the way prospective students approached higher education. So it became more market oriented. And now we hear people saying that a university's most valuable intangible asset is its brand and not the people. Similarly, cultural industries in history show that arts and culture was largely free and low cost and highly accessible for most people throughout history. In fact, Habermas in 1962 talked about the bourgeois public sphere, in which public art was much more widespread because it was paid for by patrons in the bourgeois class. So I think that modernity and globalization are much bigger forces than COVID-19 in transforming arts production and dissemination. And just like with the university, branding, copyright, corporatization of nonprofit arts, and culture as entertainment are pervasive forces pushing arts and culture in new directions. So the question is it a seismic shift, or is it a matter of, as I see it, knowledge distortion, a failure to see trends as part of a longer tradition with a little bit of post hoc reasoning? So the changes we see in delivery of education and arts and culture that are happening now are likely to be linked causally to COVID-19, when in fact they've been around for a while.
Everything we now see is telling us a story. Like the story of I lost my arm.
There's also the economic incentive to capitalize on the new and spur action in an already determined direction, which would have taken longer otherwise. So I think a significant part of this is that it has kicked universities and artists into actions that they wouldn't otherwise take. So what are the takeaways from my presentation? One, that new technologies really are great equalizers as long as most people have access. So I think that we don't have to worry about the delivery of education, the delivery of arts and culture, as long as there's very widespread access to the internet and people have computer technologies. We also have to remember that technologies are only tools, but we now have an opportunity to exploit our use of them in unforeseen directions for education and for arts and cultural production and delivery. Also, I think that education and arts culture normalize new technology use over time. So the innovations that in knowledge delivery and in arts and culture dissemination will become the new norm as we go forward. And finally, that technologies in education and in arts culture will as drivers of innovation and change. So human capital remains a fundamental and essential component, even in times of crisis. So thank you very much for listening to me and for your time.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, madam, for your quality and quality
priority again.
presentation.
हाल तो देखिए संकट का है, अब इससे तो हम नहीं बच सकते, भाग सकते कि इसमें कोई विकल्प नहीं है, हमारे पास कोरोना है, लेकिन
so our faculty member, Dr. Sipra Sagarika madam, as a question for you, madam, Professor Constance, one question for you, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you very much, madam, for your wonderful deliberation. I really enjoyed your talk, and I want to respond on the fact that as we see, the culture industries are functioning everywhere, and the popular culture is working in the entire plot. How do you see education playing a major role in handling culture industries? With a specific reference to Marxian thinkers like Adorno and Horkheimer, I would like you to respond for culture industries and education. Thank you, madam.
Yes, well, so my role at my university is to train people in delivery of arts and culture, the people who manage organizations. And the changes that are happening now, as I said, have been coming for a very long time, and in some ways have been worrisome because we haven't been training people to really take advantage of the internet. We've been doing things in the old way, assuming that things would remain. So training people to run a symphony orchestra in person, you know, going to the office every day and working with the accountants and working with the artists. And so for many organizations, this came as a big shock because they haven't prepared for these new developments. So what does that mean for popular culture? Well, I think popular culture really is the leader in the arts anyway. And as the internet has shown us, as I earlier said, it's the great equalizer. So people are creating their own art. They're managing themselves. They're taking care of dissemination because they have access to the internet. So that gives, gives pause to what is the role of the arts manager in such a situation. And I think that that's still being decided. For myself, in my classes, I try to train people for what will we be doing in 10 years, what will we be doing in 20 years, even though we're not sure what the world will be like at that time. So I think it's about training people to be innovative thinkers, to be able to read the trends in the world and to take advantage of them. So I hope that responds to your question adequately.
Yeah, yes, madam. Yes, madam. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam.
Hello, madam. Good afternoon. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Ma'am. There are few questions asked by a few participants, madam. Number one is Professor Dinesh Kumar, who is asking about the technology, madam. How far technology is being replaced for book, actually? How far technology will be replaced for books, actually?
Technology replacing print material, essentially, hard books. Did I hear that correctly?
Yeah.
Well, I mentioned in my presentation that I've been teaching online since the early 2000s, and online classes have existed since before then. Google has been digitizing material for quite a long time. I don't now remember off the top of my head when Google started, but some of you might know. I think that people are increasingly adapted to reading online, and that, I think it's a really good development. Sort of acknowledging again the earlier question too, the lady who asked the question was talking about the public sphere. So when we put things online, it increases the public sphere. It increases the access that people have to us and us to them. And so I think the development for any kind of medium online is a very positive thing. Will it ever replace hardcover books altogether? I don't think so. We still have papyrus scrolls from ancient Egypt. There are, scrolls from ancient India that still exist and people can read them. So new technologies will never entirely replace old technologies. They're an enhancement to delivery systems and increases our ability. Let me also say that one of the things that we fail to recognize about the advantage of the internet for education is that it can speed up our ability to learn things. Now, obviously, to read something, it takes the time to read it. But because you have access, it's much more speeded up in that way. Traditional education came about because people didn't have access. If you, in ancient times, fewer people could read. In the 16th, 17th, 18th century, more people could read, but there were fewer books available. So when you went to university, you needed a person who had read all those books to tell you what those books said. And those were the learned professors. But now you can look things up on your own, find them on your own. So you ask the question, well, if I can find it on my own, why do I need a professor? Well, you still need the professor, but the professor has to take on a different role now. The professor isn't just the substitute for books, right? The professor now helps you put learning into context in a way that can adapt it to the real world.
Thank you, madam. Another questions from Mr. Ravindra Kumar. The question is, madam, like this: what could be the major disruption in educational sector?
A major disruption, I think, I think the answer is different depending on who you're talking about in the university. From the university point of view, the biggest disruption would be that we just go online altogether and people never return to the physical university. That would be a complete disruption because universities own buildings that they have to maintain. And if no one comes back, then what are they going to do with all those buildings? I think it's less of a disruption for teachers and students because they can meet online. Disruption for teachers would be that perhaps universities decide that they need fewer teachers because they can have one teacher talk to 1,000, 2,000 people. I think that would be unfortunate. As I said in my presentation, we still need human capital. We can't substitute for human beings. And somebody teaching to 2,000 people is not as effective as one person teaching to, say, 15 or 20 or 30 and being able to give them some very intensive attention. Right? And I think the disruption for students would be if universities disappear altogether, because as much as universities have problems, people talk about the broken university, but they are still wonderful places for young people to go to become who they're going to be. And without that place that they can go to as young adults to emerge as full adults, I think we'll see a very different kind of society. So did that answer your question adequately?
Some of the participants. I'm really grateful to you for joining us in spite of all hours in America, and we are looking forward to your cooperation in future as well. Thank you, ma'am. Now it's time to invite the next speaker, next distinguished speaker, none other than Professor Kumar Varadas. I would like to introduce him first. Professor Kumar Varadas is a social scientist. He is an insightful scholar with organic thoughts. He is a very reputed educationist and a mind-blowing, awesome orator. He is the alumni of Presidency College of Calcutta University. He has obtained PhD from Calcutta University, Delhi from Utkal University, and DSc from California University. He was the member of State Pollution Board and president of All Odisha Economic Association. He is the examiner of UGC NET examination, IS and IES examination of the UPSC. He was the principal economist of different research projects of Government of India, ODA, World Health Organization, and World Bank. You are the Vice Chancellor of our university, it is Fakir Mohan University, Baleshwar. and Professor of Applied Economics and Chairman, Department of Economics, Utkal University. You are the head of the SBI and RBI Endowment Research Center. You are the Chief Economic Advisor, World Bank, Moscow. He has supervised 30 PhD scholars and authored 32 books and 200 research papers. He has expertise in microeconomics, macroeconomics, international economics, welfare economics, and mathematical economics. His research interest includes rural development, poverty, livelihood and food security, sustainable development, child labor, tribal development, women empowerment, regional development, tourism, displacement, and disaster management. So, sir, I request you to deliver your presentation. Professor Das, sir, Honorable Das, sir. Sir, it is not audible.
Sir, mute your speaker. She mute करना है. Sir, unmute your speaker.
The speaker.
Yes, it is audible.
Speaker. Speaker is muted.
Yes, sir.
Odisha, can we ask sir to unmute his mic?
Yes, sir. Sir, please unmute your mic, sir. Sir, please unmute your mic.
Sir, namaskar.
Sir, please unmute your mic.
Hello.
Sir, please unmute your mic, sir. The left side. The left side.
Sir, please unmute your mic.
कोई देर सर.
Hello, sir.
Sir, please unmute your mic.
Sir, namaskar. It's not audible. Sir is not audible. We are audible.
Hello, sir.
Mute him.
Sir, are you audible? Even sir's full picture is also not coming. It's the upper part of the. Let him sit and listen. Sir is unable to listen to us. The very face is. He's not. He has taken the help of his.
Right, sir. Right, sir.
It's now okay?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, everybody. Good afternoon to all of you. I extend a hearty welcome, and also I thank the organizers, particularly Dr. Padhi and Sunil Padhi and Sachidananda and other Gita Konda and all other colleagues of the Department of Economics and Social Science and all participants, international participants and national participants, my students, media persons, and particularly the Vice Chancellor, Professor Madhumita Das, my successor. Very pragmatic, very dynamic leadership. Under her leadership, the university is doing a lot of work, academic work every month, every year. I used to observe and I appreciate. And particularly Professor Ghansam Singh, my mentor, my very good friend. He has been invited and he to the conference. I'm very happy that Sunil and others, they have taken care of this thing that he have invited Professor Ghansam Singh, who is the international and national economist of international repute. So I'm very happy that I see him in the website today. And all the chairman, particularly Dr. Dehuri, and all other faculty members of the university. I'm very happy to see this gathering, and I'm also very delighted to have my own perspective on COVID, on the issue of COVID and its impact on Indian economy and the society. So thank you all, and let me come to the topic. Topic is the impact of COVID on Indian economy and society. That is my, when they asked me what is the exact theme of my talk, then I said only 20 minutes or 10 minutes maximum, so let me speak on this. We know this issue, this pandemic is a different type of catastrophe or calamity. It is not like any man-made or natural calamity. Is different because suppose is Fukushima or Bhuj earthquake or super flood, super cyclone. We know those things, and we are acquainted all those super natural calamities, and government used to take huge relief measures. That is different, and this is different in many sense. Number one is it is added with two other issues. Before COVID came, the economic slowdown was going on, economic crisis in the globe was going on, and that is still continuing. Economic crisis, economic slowdown, and was going in the whole world. All countries were suffering from economic slowdown and downturn. And second one is the issue of climate change. It is also going on. These three things are added together, and that's why at this juncture we suffer from three issues. One is COVID. Second is climate change. Third is economic crisis of the globe. All three are affecting the entire globe. Entire globe is affected by these three things. Therefore, it is a disastrous and most serious problem for the whole mankind. That's why it is alarming and it's very serious for the entire globe. Okay. Then, and this COVID is also, we are discussing sometimes post-COVID. What is post-COVID? COVID is going on, and every day the fatal cases and affected cases are increasing. Whole globe is suffering. It is an unending process, and vaccines are being prepared by all countries, all scientists. They are in all countries. They are busy. Yes, somebody is telling. All scientists are busy for finding out the vaccine and remedial measures, but nothing has succeeded till now. But we have to live with it. And now there is lockdown. Then now there is unlocking system, and phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 lockdown. Then again phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 unlocking system of the economy, and it is only that is only a relief measure. Lockdown is only a relief measure, and but there was no plan for long term taking care of the long term effect, because this COVID has both long term and short term effects. And these relief measures were managing very nicely. Central government, state government managed very nicely. The quarantine centers, central government have done very wonderful remedial measures to curb the effect of COVID. The short-term effects and long-term economic and social effects are there, and long-term effects also there. And the most affected sector in this COVID is tourism sector, aviation sector, railways, hotels. They are most affected, most highly affected these sectors. Medium affected sectors are petrochemicals and other sectors, and the least affected sector is pharmaceuticals. Let us see how these different sectors are affected by COVID. First one is agriculture. The agricultural sector is highly affected because whole farm sector suffers from farm crisis and farmer crisis. We are always addressing farm crisis, but we always address the supply side issue. We always neglect the demand side issue of the agricultural sector. Farmers are making suicide, and before COVID, after COVID also, farmers suffered most due to the loss of livelihood during COVID, and low productivity, high indebtedness, and low demand for their own product, and total loss, and total sector is devastated. I am going very quickly and precisely. The second sector is industry. Industry, particularly the corporate sector, is focusing on efficiency, productivity, and profitability, and they have adopted because of economic reforms of 90s. They have adopted two jungle laws. One is survival of the fittest and struggle for existence. As a result, those two sectors, this corporate sector, large industries now are suffering because of COVID from low demand in national and international markets. Whole corporate sector, large industries are suffering, and small sectors are suffering more because of due to COVID, because of no demand, no profit. Then this industrial sector has been emphasized by the central government, particularly the MSME sector. It is which has been considered the backbone of the economy, and this sector has immense potentialities. And this is giving also training and empowerment, making empowerment of the women entrepreneurs, and promotion of development of micro and macro enterprises, and promoting micro enterprises are in tune with the post-COVID pandemic. This MSME is continuously working for upgrades of skill and understanding of the markets, and able to provide employment for lakhs of youth entrepreneurship, contributing majority towards the contributing major share of the industrial sector. So this industrial sector, this MSME sector, they have established now a technology center with 22 crores with the support of World Bank, and it has the objective of facilitating improved access to manufacturing sector, and improved availability of and employability of skilled workers, and establishing a strong focus in providing business and technological advisory service. And this program of this is called Technology Center. The program has mainly 4 components: to establish a physical infrastructure, number 2 is to engage the services of the world-class technology partners, and third is engaging the services of reputed cluster network managers, and to establish a national portal for interactive and self-sustainable technology platform. These are the 4 components of the TCSP, Technology Center System Program. So the finance minister has announced 20 trillion stimulus package, fiscal package, and she has assured collateral-free automatic loan will give a benefit to the entrepreneurs. This MSME package under the Atmanirbhar Abhijan or Self-Reliant Indian Movement, they have changed the definition also. Definition of MSME, micro, macro, and micro, medium, and small sectors. They have changed the classifications. Micro enterprise now can invest 1 crore with 5 crore turnover. Small enterprise can invest 10 crore with 50 crore turnover. Medium enterprise can invest 20 crore with 100 crore turnover. And the third, 3 lakh crore collateral free automatic loans to the business will be granted, including MSME. And second is emergency credit line to business and MSME from the banks and NBFC, non-banking financial institutions. And borrowers up to 25 crores outstanding and 100 crores turnover are eligible for the collateral free automatic loan. Loans to have 4-year tenure with moratorium of 12 months on principal repayments. So this is about industrial sector and MSME sector. The trade sector next. Trade sector export is affected mostly by the COVID, and import is also reduced. As a result, BOP, balance of payment crisis, has increased. The gap between export and import and balance of trade and balance of payment situation has become worse because of COVID. And total investment and investment climate in the country has gone down. As a result, the business expectation index, business confidence index has eroded, has decreased. Then let us see the education sector, social sector. It is easy to digitize the school sector and primary education sector, but a special drive is necessary for higher education. Special drive for educational digitization is necessary for expanding the horizon of the higher education. We should strengthen the very foundation of education pyramid at the grassroots level. We should have internet and broadband infrastructure facilities throughout the country. Through university portal, online classes, e-platforms, video lectures, and virtual library, we can create a greater intellectual possibility for the society. I hope the new educational policy which has been declared this month by the central government will address these new issues and new challenges. On the contrary, we should address the challenge from the demand side, that is affordability of the students. The students are staying in the village, and village has no electricity facility and no internet connection. So that affordability and that the students are mostly coming from poor background, so they cannot afford. That issue has been neglected in the new educational policy. Next, health sector. Health sector, we know the private and corporate hospitals are not interested to treat the COVID patients. For last 4 or 5 months, we have been observing government has prohibited them also. Government has also made a mistake that they have prohibited. Government has prohibited the private sector to treat the to admit the COVID patients. On the contrary, if somebody is found to have infection, COVID infection, then they will be automatically informed to the government, and government will take care of the COVID patient in the private hospital, in the government hospital, either permanent hospital or temporary hospital. They must realize that it is a problem of the entire mankind. The private hospitals must realize, and the whole world is fighting and struggling against the pandemic. All are busy in discovering a vaccine and medicine now. Russia has already invented the vaccine, and India is also now trying. America is also trying. They all are trying for the vaccine and for the remedy and for the medicine. But we must understand, when the private sector has withdrawn, has neglected this issue, they are not with the mankind. They are only for the profit and only for the other disease, not for the issue whole mankind is suffering. We know that Article 21 of Indian Constitution provides the right to life. Right to life is inside our Indian in the Constitution. If someone is dying without getting a proper health facility, is not only injustice, not only inhuman, but also a serious crime. That we do not understand. The private sector, therefore, withdrawing from the whole issue, and the government should compel them, therefore, to provide. And they may charge exorbitant exorbitant fees, and they may exploit, they may plunder the corona patient because of the COVID disease. But government should put a cap, keep that within the limit, and regulate the whole process of private process in the private hospitals. In this situation, everybody should have positive mind and humanistic and empathetic approach to the COVID situation. Now, appropriate time has come to review and introspect. Our national economy has been completely devastated, completely distorted due to COVID. Now we should really realize how weak how dependent in our national economy, how dependent we are. Our economy is dependent. We export import is good, give and take is good, but dependence is bad. Learning from everybody, but following it, nobody. If you learn from everybody, it is okay. But through the process of learning, if you follow somebody, it is disastrous for the individual. One should not follow anybody, and one should not be dependent on anybody. Economy having a weak backbone can never ensure long-term inclusive or sustainable development. We now realize how India is technologically backward also. Technologically, how backward we are, and our development process is defective there. Therefore, we should change the whole process of development now. It is right time. And becoming optimistic, it is very good. Being optimistic, having optimism is better than pessimism, definitely. But one should not be bereft of the reality. Optimists are also not realistic. Pessimistic are bad. Optimistic are also non-performers. They are also non-doers. We must be realist. We should not be bereft of ugly reality that prevails in our society. It has completely devastated and disrupted almost all sectors of the country. We need strong political will and bureaucratic pragmatism. First, direct transfer of money is necessary to increase the purchasing power of people and ensure their livelihood during this COVID. Secondly, the government should encourage business by providing easy and sufficient credit to the entrepreneurs in the small scale sector. Thirdly, the government should give full autonomy, full financial freedom to the financial institution to solve this problem. And this COVID has therefore taught us three things, at least three things. We have learned three things from this period of last 5 months experience. We have learned three things. First is revitalizing the rural economy. We know that rural sector is perishing, but urban sector is flourishing. India is shining, but Bharat is sinking. That we must realize. Bharat and India, the disparity is increasing. Rural sector, urban sector disparity is increasing. But we say rural sector is prospering, urban sector is prospering, we say, but we do not perceive the difference. The gap is increasing like the seizure. One seizure is going up, one seizure is going down. The gap is increasing. That is rapid. Therefore, rapid urbanization is not the real development. Soul of our nation lies in 7 lakh villages of the country. Village economy is the backbone of the development, real development. Rural development is the foundation of development pyramid. Village life is more natural and most safe. Therefore, village economy should be revitalized. But what we are doing, we are devitalizing the rural economy, and the whole village economy is being dismal in terms of growth. Village life is more natural and most safe. Therefore, economy should be revitalized. Village and city are complementary, but the first priority is village. Complementary, we say. If we say complementary, then we ignore, we fail to perceive the which is first and which is second. First is village. First is trunk. Next is branch. Branch is meaningless without trunk, but trunk is not meaningless without branch. Some are sitting and some are listening. Father and mother are complementary for the family, but mother is first. Father is the branch, mother is the trunk. That we must understand. Don't say complementary. If you say complementary, it is not only misleading, it is also concealing the fact. The first priority is mother, first priority is the village. So the dignity of and the interest towards physical labor should increase. It is unfortunately decreasing everywhere. Dignity of labor is decreasing. Dignity of physical work is decreasing in the mind of elite class. That is unfortunate. And the health facilities and educational system in the villages should be improved so that the tendency to migrate to cities should decrease now. Adopting an artificial urban life is not modernization. It is not wrong when young people migrate to the cities for higher education or for job or for earning some income. They earn some income, they go to cities. That is okay, that is good, that is not bad. But elderly people and should stay in the village, and for the health. Good health facilities should be developed in the villages. Elderly people should not stay in the city. They should go back to the village. And children at their early childhood, they should spend in the village with their grandfather and grandmother, and for socialization, for cultural development, for their emotional stability, everything they will get in the childhood. The childhood should not be spent in the city. The relationship between village and cities should be more interdependent. The mental and physical growth of the child will be better if spend their childhood with grandmother and grandfather parents, and by this we can arrest the social degradation and cultural onslaught. It is very dangerous to accept the artificial and urban life by discarding the relationship with the village. This much we understand that this is my own perspective, my own thinking, which I call it the organic thinking. Second, there should be balanced growth of agriculture and industry. I'll take hardly 5 minutes more. Balanced growth and agricultural growth of agriculture and industry. There should be balance. Different sectors should be addressed, but agriculture and industry should be linked, and there should be proper balance. The branch is unthinkable without the trunk, but it is always possible to have a trunk without the branch. It is disastrous to neglect the village development and ignore the agriculture for our nation. We should have development of agriculture along with farmers' economic status. Farmers' economic status should increase, but we are thinking of corporatization of agriculture, unfortunately. Agricultural development through corporations is dangerous. It is very harmful for the country. There should be linkage and harmony between agriculture and industry, cottage and village industry, small industry, household industry, agro-based industry, food processing industries, and rural industry in general should be encouraged in the villages by appropriate economic policy. As a result, the village people can be more capable of earning. All types of skilled, unskilled, and semi-skilled workers can get some employment opportunities, which can guarantee the food security and food sovereignty. Food sovereignty, again I repeat, food sovereignty to the entire nation, entire country. It is very correct to render help and receive support from each other, but it is fully dangerous to depend on somebody completely. It is good to learn from everyone, but it is completely wrong to follow anyone. In every field, we should become self-reliant and self-sufficient. We are telling developing countries are developing, but in actuality for last 60 years, 70 years, not a single developing country is developing. Developing countries are in the same position, they are not developed. They are not developed because the development process, the development model that we have accepted, we have been teaching in the classroom is totally irrelevant. It is significant but irrelevant. Significance is not same as relevance. Therefore, we should not realize the relevance of the Gandhi. Now we should realize the Gandhi's concept of Gram Swaraj and Hind Swaraj. Ultimately, we can curb the ill effects of consumerism in our economy, in our country, in our society. The third one is social development. Social development is the foundation of economic development, not vice versa. Social development is not the effect of trickle-downism. First social development, first development, then economic growth. But economists are myopic, like me. Many economists, my fraternity members, I do not agree with my member of my fraternity. They say economic growth is first. Economic growth is the engine that will drive the whole society later on. But I say reverse. We are putting the cart before the horse. Social development is first. Development is first. Development is independent function, independent variable. Economic growth is the dependent variable. Therefore, I say economic growth is the function of development, not vice versa. It is vice versa is a correlation. But economic growth is dependent on the economic development, not development, economic development, only development. Development is a very wider term. Development means cultural development, social development, women development, child development. All types of development is called development. That is holistic. That development is first necessary, then economic growth is a luxury. It's a luxury, not necessity. For sleep, to sleep, bed is neither necessary nor sufficient condition for sleeping. Your bed is neither necessary, bed, what you understand by bed. I am telling about your bed. Bed is neither necessary nor sufficient condition for sleep. Sleep is independent. Therefore, development is independent, but economic growth is dependent. That's why we need social development first, which is not in this country. Social development now, COVID has taught us social distancing. Social distancing, what does it mean social? Was it social? Previously, we are very cohesive. Previously, we are fighting for terrorism, we are fighting for regionalism, we are fighting for casteism, we are fighting for everything. There was a social fracturization, there was social fracturing, but now we are making social distancing in COVID. But we must understand from COVID experience that development of human resource is not enough. Human resource management, human resource HRD, human resource management. That is the Minister of Human Resource Development. Human resource development means what? Present is, that is for young people. I am telling a joke. For young people, today is frustration, tomorrow is uncertain. For young people, those who are having highly educated, qualified people. For those people, today is frustration, tomorrow is uncertain, and HRD means in Odia I must say how ruha dekhiba. HRD how ruha dekhiba. HRD. So human resource development is not enough. Development of human being, development of human values is most essential, which is being ignored. Our government should give top priority to social development. The real foundation of economic development is social development. The priority of the market and the imperatives of the society are totally separate and totally different. Our main goal should be to build a healthy society. The real prosperity of the nation would be possible. Social values, humanistic thought, human empathy, human relation, mentality of kindness, forgiveness, tolerance, sacrifice shall increase in the society, and particularly this country should be the example for the whole world. For this objective, first it is necessary to build a happy family. Second, the relationship among the family members should be very cordial and intimate. The Indian family is the most superb insurance for the individual. Due to modernization, there is lack of love, intimate relationship inside one family. House is beautiful, home is ugly. That we must understand. All homes are houses, but all houses are not homes. Home and houses. Home is family. Home refers to a family, but house may not refer to a family. Good family. The crisis of relationships should be removed from the society. Cultural degradation should be controlled. Spiritual consciousness among the people should increase, and there is need for change in our educational system and people's attitude. All types of ignorance, all types of arrogance, mentality of having more luxurious life, more is better, we must forget. More is better, it is not necessarily true. Enjoying laziness, having a wasteful life, wasteful consumption, having many wastages in the house of everything, artificiality, blind beliefs, selfishness, jealousy, envy, competitive mentality. Whole market is teaching us to be competitive. That competitive mentality is wrong. Competitive mentality and mentality of materialistic acquisition should be removed from the society. Happy life is simple life. Simple life is happy life. That is Gandhian concept. That is Abdul Kalam's concept. The definition and yardstick of our success should change. We should not break the joint family system. The children of India should teach whole world. Joint family system should not be broken because women empowerment is possible only through joint family system. When the lady is trying to work in the office, the grandfather, grandmother should be present in the house. But we are breaking joint family system, and at the same time we want women empowerment. The children can get opportunity to imbibe social values, morality and human values, social values, learn to have noble thoughts, super consciousness, good behavior and good education. Happy family is the best health center for the individual during any crisis or any calamity. Family is the best insurance and society the most safe place. Final conclusion is to conclude for 2-3 lines. Corona has opened our eyes. It has taught us appropriate lesson and given us correct direction. We have now realized the consequence of free market policy and privatization process. Corona, I do not blame privatization. I blame commercialization and insensitivity. All private sectors are not bad. All public sectors are not good necessarily. What I'm emphasizing, the social orientation I am saying. I'm talking about social orientation is lacking in the privatization process because they are automatically, willy-nilly, they are gravitated towards commercialization. That's why we should realize now consequences of privatization in India, particularly in developing countries, that is very disastrous. Corona has taught us the mankind that market cannot solve all the problems. It has created the mental strength to stand firmly in the face of all natural calamities. Now people should not migrate to other states and other countries in search of any job. Odisha is the best state where migrant workers are working outside the state, outside the country, in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia as pipe workers. It is not the character of any good society, not the character of a desirable society. For any developed country, it's bad. It is as worse as slavery. It is no better than forced migration. Is no better than slavery. So we need people's empowerment. We need women empowerment, particularly general digitization for empowerment is warranted. We need true democratic system, not this oligarchic system. True democracy is a question mark. True democracy is a question mark. Throughout it, America also, the most democratic country is also not democratic. Putin Soviet Russia is also not democratic. You must have seen the Putin's position in the country is strong, and it is as worse as any monarchy. And we want a democratic system, not an oligarchic system. So Corona has given us the opportunity to face the challenge of building our prosperous nation with self-reliant, advancing economy, with a prosperous society by working in our own native land, staying with our family and living in the society. We should discard the free market policy and privatization process in all sectors. Thus, the responsibility and direct role of the government in our development process has become more and more indispensable. Now, we should change the direction of development, and we should discard the present model of economic growth, which has been triggered by the Western model builders, Western economists, Western planners. They have triggered this policy of free market policy, and that has now taught us it is not useful. It is rather harmful to the mankind when there is natural calamity like this. COVID has taught us that this free market policy is no way helpful. It will rather exploit the temporary hospitals, how they are exploiting the COVID center to the patient, how they are neglecting, how the life is treated as a commodity in the COVID centers, in the COVID hospitals, permanent hospital, temporary hospitals. Both are exploiting the mankind. Entire mankind is suffering. And the best example is our country. Best example is Odisha, where the society has to notice this, and society must realize, because society's imperative, society's perspective is different, market's perspective is different. Market is only for profit, and therefore private sectors are not coming forward. They are not interested to treat the COVID patient during the crisis. The whole mankind is suffering, but they are remaining as insensitive as anything, and they are insensitive, indifferent, and they are almost they are waiting for some profit to get from the government. Government is sanctioning huge money. 1900 crores have been spent in Odisha state, and that money has been siphoned only to the private sector. That has gone to the private sector, and that money is not benefiting the common man. That's why this kind of outlandish thinking, outlandish touristic observation is disastrous and misleading for the country. We elite class, we must not be touristic. Our mentality should be socially oriented, how society will benefit, how this kind of insensitivity is also pervading, and it has become pervasive in the private sector. So private sector only get the benefit, but they never sacrifice anything for the society. They never come forward to solve the to struggle, to fight against this corona. Corona is the best example. Whole world is suffering. Last thousand years, this is one unprecedented event, unprecedented catastrophe, calamity has come, and along with this crisis, economic crisis, and our climate change crisis, all three things together cannot be addressed by any private sector model, by any free market model. Of course, state has a great role. State simply umpiring will not do. State must be active. Umpiring of the state is not enough. Simply indicating, simply observing things as a umpire is not enough. It has to play active role. It has to be more active, more participative, and most involved in the development process. And therefore, social development should not be ignored. It should be first priority. And inside which health sector comes, inside which health education sector comes. So education should not be more and more privatized. The new educational policy is good. It is good, but if it is gravitating towards privatization, it is bad. When they have emphasized Odia medium, local language medium of education up to class 5, is very welcome. It's good. It's a good proposal and good planning, because mother tongue will make you more creative and more creative and more internally strong. But ultimately, if it is going towards becoming privatized, and it is ultimately again becoming a Western society, our society should teach the Western world how our society, our culture is better. We must be the leader in the spiritual world, in the cultural sphere, in the social sector. We must be the leader for the whole humanity. Whole humanity is going in a wrong direction. That must be taught by Indian society, Indian culture. So with this, I share my unconventional. I have a different perspective. I have a social orientation. From the beginning, I have a social orientation, but I differ from my economic fraternity who are telling about only efficiency, productivity, profitability, investment, more income, more GDP. I just ignore those aspects. Those aspects are the only branch, only the aspect, only the branch, only the part of the branch. Ignoring the trunk is really fatal for the society. We should not ignore the trunk. The foundation of the pyramid, development pyramid foundation is village economy, rural economy, and the farmers. Without food, can a professor exist for 1 minute? But farmer can live without a professor. A farmer can live without a professor. A professor cannot live 1 minute for without the farmer. So illiterate is the basis of the literate. Illiteracy is not bad. Illiteracy is as important as educated people, but educated people, they think themselves as superior, and then they are inferior, they are superior. The superior inferior, the dichotomy has been created by the educated class for their own benefit. So being educated, being a scientist, being a doctor, being a professor, we all depend on the farmers. Farmer is illiterate, so illiteracy is not a drag. Education is a drag. Is not a drag on economic development. Drag is our outlandish attitude is a drag. Our planning is beautiful, but data is ugly. We are optimistic but not realistic. So with this, thank you very much. If somebody participates, somebody asks questions, I'll be very happy to. Thank you very much, Professor Sunil Padi, particularly Vice Chancellor, who is my good friend, good neighbor, and she is very active, very practical, very academically. She has proved herself as the best leader in the campus in the state, and I'm very thankful to her, and Professor Ghanshyam Singh, my mentor. I'm very thankful that he is listening and he is present. So I'm very thankful to all the organizers, to the participants, all my students, my non-students, my colleagues. Some are known, some are not known, but everybody, I like all of you and your presence. And if you participate, you can participate now, or you can participate also in the internet, in the email, by WhatsApp also. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Yes, Sunil?
Yes, thank you, sir, for delivering such a wonderful talk on this issue, particularly on social and economic issues which has arisen due to COVID-19 all over the world. And I'm really very much thankful to you, sir. Now it's time to invite Professor Anup Pant, who is our next speaker. And I would like to introduce him. Dr. Anup Pant is Associate School of Business Studies as Professor in Finance stream for the last 6.5 years. Prior to joining Sarda University, Professor Pant has held academic administrative assignments in different institutes in National Capital Region. He was the Director of Institute of Advanced Management and Research, Ghaziabad, Director, Accurate Institute of Advanced Management, Greater Noida, Founder Director of Ajay Kumar Gork Institute of Management, Ghaziabad. You are the Director of Jaipuriya Institute of Management, Ghaziabad. He has also been Program Director and Professor at Asia Pacific Institute of Management, New Delhi. Professor Pant is a professor in the area of finance and accounting. In fact, we have worked together during 2007 in Asia Pacific Institute of Management Studies, New Delhi. He also takes keen interest in guiding PhD students. At present, he is guiding post-PhD scholars. Dr. Pant has been very actively involved in research and publication, and more than 20 publications in international and national journals and international conferences. He has also authored 18 textbooks in the area of finance and accounting. He has got his PhD from Banaras Hindu University, Varanasi, and has been teaching subjects in finance area to postgraduate students of management at various reputed schools of management for the last 24 years. Thank you, sir. Now we invite Professor Pant to deliver his talk.
Thank you, Professor Sunil Padi, sir. My association with you is long, so I start with a good afternoon to everybody. and my regards to all the eminent panelists that have spoken before me in the wonderful session that we are having, and my regards also to the esteemed colleagues, my seniors at Fakir Mohan University, Balasore, Odisha. So before I start my presentation, I would be really saying that I'm honored and thrilled to be part of the discussion. So when I start my presentation, I'll break it into two small presentations. One is I'll be dealing with economics of finance, and then I'll be going into the stock exchanges and the behavior per se. So I start like this. The big question that comes to everybody's mind is that how do we get out of this pandemic? With the huge financial losses the world has seen, and India being no exception, has been severely impacted by it. Now, there is a very interesting thing. There's a usual class war which is operating nowadays, and it has been operating since very long, that there are people basically who call themselves masters of the world, who are the people who design the policies and who are already trying to plan the future economy. And then there are the people, the general masses, the general people who are at this moment more quiescent. And if this goes on for a longer period of time, the masters' wish will prevail, and we'll have more rules and regulations coming up. Now, when I talk about the rules and regulations, the plan of the economy that is now, we call it a neoliberal period. So they want to do what? They want to reconstitute the economy pretty much the way it had been over the last 30, 40 years. And now what they are doing due to this pandemic and other reasons better known to them, that the rules are becoming more harsh. Efforts are being put in place to ensure interference with their model. Now, just to focus in where we are now and how the economic cycle fits in, I think there are three key elements to the current set of circumstances. We have a collapse in global income caused by the pandemic, with interest rates at almost zero. They are there in America, and very low interest rates in India. There is very much, now this is very much different from a typical economic cycle that we have. The economic cycle is what? A contraction of credit brought about by tightening monetary policy or fiscal policy, which is largely under the control of the central bank. And when things get bad, they cut interest rates. What they do is they the government rather eases the monetary policy and also the fiscal policy at times. And then we come out of it with the expansion of credit. Now, the thing, what is happening here as of today and with the pandemic striking us, is that at these times of the pandemic, it's a collapse in the income, the fear of safety. And it basically means people are at home and they're not contributing very much to the economic activity. Now, it has caused a collapse of income, and the collapse of income causes a collapse in spending. So now, whereas in a normal state, you will find that a monetary policy leading to tightening of credit falling, spending falling, income would be the last thing that would fall. But now, in this present state of time, income is the first thing that fell, leading to reduction of spending, and then all other reactions followed. See, the driving influence is the virus, which we should know, because that is the main constitution why we are talking today, because the virus has impacted everybody's life. It has affected the health, it has affected the economy. So influence of the virus is that nobody understands very well, let alone the government response to the virus, and then the responses of the public to the government. And the very big difference across countries, there's a huge amount of uncertainty related to the causal effects of the virus, and then how to pull out of this with the very low interest rates that we already have, or the interest rates that have already gone down to zero. That is a classical case in America. So what we are going into is actually the government is doing is accumulating credit as opposed to reducing credit. So normally in an economic contraction in the normal times, you are reducing credit, raising interest rates, and this gives the government a lot of room to cut interest rates and expend credit while coming out of the problem. But in this case, you have zero or very low interest rates. You can't cut them any further, and the credit is expanding, which is reducing the potential to pull out of it. So the solution to this problem is actually what the economists refer to as tweaking in the monetary policy. Now, you see, the conventional monetary policy is interest rate driven monetary policy, and which basically comes to an end when we reach a bottoming out of interest rates. So there we follow a different pattern that is called as the QE driven monetary policy. That is the quantitative easing, which we had in America in 2008. But then again, here what the government does is they would buy into assets, but when the risk premium has already becomes low, after then you buy those scarce assets, the risk premium becomes low, then there's a potential again of breaking this sort of a model down. So now what we have is juxtaposition of two things, the monetary and the fiscal policy, which is again a tweaking of that, in which the real, say, the biggest action is the fiscal stimulation, where the government is directing the funds in economy where it is most needed, and the government supports that with monetary policy, and perhaps maybe with the printing of more money, where you buy these share bonds that the government would usually buy in order to sustain itself in the longer run, so that the interest rates don't go up and reverse the effects that the government is trying to achieve. So that is a direct reflection of the fact that we have interest rate bottoming down or almost coming to zero. Now, the actions today are roughly appropriate. In other words, the amount of printing and the amount of fiscal stimulation is roughly sufficient to fill the holes in economy or the income that was created, but not all that money is getting spent. Here is the emphasis. Almost about 50% of the stimulus that the government had so decided, and that was the short, say 4 for 6 months period of time that it covered, only 50% of it was spent or is actually being spent as of date. So actually what you have is nearly as much of an improvement in spending in the economy as you have the liquidity in the system, because the money is there. So in addition to this, the central banks are printing money more over and above what it takes to finance the deficits. And it is putting it into buying all kinds of assets. So now we have a major reflation going on, which has been by and large successful to now, as of now. But the big question is that, we are used to thinking in terms of increase in growth rate, change in output over a short period of time. The big thing happening now is to be thinking about the collapse of income, the level of income that exists, because the low level of income that exists will be here for another, say, good amount of period of time, because of the pandemic, the closures, the macro closures that we are having, and still it's there. We call it now the opening up of the economy. So substantial period of time they will be there. And the lowering of spending and so forth and so on. It also means lower cash flow for those who are trading on thin ice and with their limited financial conditions. The longer this goes on, it becomes difficult for them to survive. And so you have these two pressures operating at the same time. You have collapse in income, which results in collapse of cash flows, which will affect those who are vulnerable to the collapse of cash flows. And you have then the expansion of liquidity by the central bank going into assets, which may not be sufficient to cover the cash flows. And the programs, that is a stimulus, today are being by and large sufficient to cover that small income gap of, say, 4 to 6 months starting April. That is when the Honorable Finance Minister, Ms. Nirmala Sitharaman, came out with the proposal of the 20 lakh crore package. So we are talking about the money that gets you through the end of the year. But the problem is that we are talking about the virus. And as per the medical fraternity and the WHO report, which says that the time frame of the virus is about 12 to 24 months. So here we have what is, I would call it as a duration mismatch. So essentially the time frame of the virus impact on spending and income in relation to time frame about how long people can last financially, this would be a major question. So if you see the market, they show, I'm taking you to the stock market. What is generally seen is that the markets are recovering and they are almost reaching out to where they were prior to the epidemic that came, this COVID-19. But now there's a very interesting finding if you see. See, this entire thing is an instant sort of a replay. Every time the government comes in with a stimulus, after 3-4 months or maybe 6 months, what will happen? This will show a bounce back in the economy, per se in the stock exchange. Now, the countries are having huge resources. Currencies are better placed. And as opposed to the emerging economies will have problems, because if you have got a huge wealth reserves, you can go and dig your hands into that wealth reserves and create a stimulus out of it. So this is what we have to see. the divergent pressures between income and cash flows to individuals, companies, and even countries, and the production of liquidity is a force that will create a lot of differentiation in the outcome. For long duration assets, your storehold of wealth benefit from the liquidity. But if you are, suppose, let's say, for example, a restaurant owner or a cinema theater owner, and you don't want to take a loan, or you don't get a loan, but then the government is there with all that liquidity. So what happens is these companies and those individuals and those countries who are most exposed to cash flow impact and also who are not storeholds of wealth, they will not be able to face this situation in a long term. So this creates a differentiation of outcomes over time, which will be really the key element of what transpires in the next 2 or 3 years. Now, if we take a look at the stock exchanges, what we see is a very gloomy picture. But because all these predictions that I am spelling out are from eminent people, and as I was going down through whatever the eminent, say, professors before me had stated. So what is here is a classical case of what is called as a lost decade argument. There have been times in the stock exchange market where people have invested into money and they did not make much more than the principal amount because there was something that happened in the economy. The recent example was 2000, the dot-com burst. Again, it was 1929, the classical example that is often quoted, when the people who would have put their money had to wait for almost 20, 25 years for their money to have any sort of value. So the first thing is causability for this concept that I am saying is the lost decade concept is the decrease in the profit margins that once were. It is said that the margins which have provided a big chunk of the excess return of equities over cash could face a shift that could go beyond the current cyclical downturn in earnings. And one of the reasons for this lowering up of profit margin is because of decline in globalization. The globalization perhaps was the largest driver of the developed world profitability over the past few decades, and it is believed that it has already peaked. Now the Indo-China tensions, the US-China conflict, and the global pandemic, what it is doing, it is just further accelerating moves by multinationals to reshore and duplicate supply chains with a focus on reliability as opposed to cost optimization. Now I want to explain this, as it is very important to understand that what these analysts or the famous people or the eminent philosophers of academia and the research says that we are saying that post 2020 or say early 2020 or maybe 2019 and years before that, there was a big drive towards globalization. By the way, the general meaning, what we perceive of globalization means businesses operating in different countries and sourcing things from different countries as well. Now, why did we do this is the question. Because it was so much cheaper and so much profitable. Because of globalization, profit margins were high. Why the analysts are now saying that since a decline in globalization due to the present crisis, this decline is happening as the countries are relying more on themselves and willing to produce their own goods. But what it does to companies is that it lowers their profit margin because it is more costlier to doing it yourself than outsourcing this. This is the key reason behind the argument that I have proposed, or the eminent scholars have proposed, the lost decade argument. Now, if you say even if there were some companies who would recover, or obviously would recover from this, but then they say stakes would be devalued, left with lower levels of profit and cash shortfalls, there are some companies that might see the other side of the coin, and they could also be wound up. Now, you got to process something, understand this, that the lockdown hasn't helped the company's balance sheets. If you got a business and you are not able to operate it for, say, 4 or 6 months due to lockdown, well, you have still got expenses to pay. And you are not generating any income for those expenses. And you do the only thing that you can is to borrow money. And that is where the say eminent educationists and the analysts are saying that this rise in that will lead to a rise in the corporate debt, which will never help the long-term equity market. The other thing that needs to grab attention, what just before me, our esteemed Vice Chancellor sir had said, that there's a great attention has to be put to this, that there's a great mismatch of wealth distribution. It's only 1% of the top rich people in any country. Take it America, India, China, Europe. You would find that the 1%, less than 1% of the entire population earns the same amount as the bottom 90%. Now, this is an interesting case of the classical, neoclassical theory, or what we call as hypercapitalism, which is now prevailing. Now, we'll have to restructure our economies and restructure our financial systems over the next couple of years in order to recover. Now, the key to success of an individual investor, now we come down to the individual investor, is to know how to diversify well and in a balanced way. You have to have a conservative investing philosophy in your mind so that you don't lose money in the longer run. So the strategy is to diversify. There are many ways to diversify. Some of the biggest and most important are across asset classes, sector, currencies, countries, and investment styles. By investment styles, I mean investing in small, big cap, and growth at some point. Sometimes maybe you are investing in the equity market by doing an ETF, that is the exchange traded funds, where the indices are traded. Okay. By asset class, what I mean is investing in stocks and bonds, and even at real estate, if the real estate is giving some value. Now, see, if we were to calibrate this, I would not go into the specific of how we should do an investment here, or which company is good or which company is bad. But what I would say is that at this point of time, the portfolio is 60% or still about 65% should be into short-term and long-term bonds, the government bonds, what I mean to say. 30% should be on shares. So diversifying well will be most important thing that we need to understand in order to invest well. Then, of course, people will not take me for granted if I did not discuss gold here. Now, you should know that at least some portion of your money, if you have got some savings, you should invest in gold, at least for a couple of years. In what gold is good at, it's a security and safety, and it acts as a secure share market hedge. What I mean by this is that in case of a stock market crash, gold holds its value and often increases. Now, so the summation of this is that there is a good chance we might be in for a long-term investments not coming good. So that lost decade argument can be held. I mean, this is one proposition. For me, we could either interpret this in two ways. One, that we may panic and worry about our portfolio results, or we may do the best thing is to prepare. Just as the analysts say, we need to be well diversified in our investment, that is across asset classes, sector, countries, and investment. So I'll conclude by saying this, that we don't have to be like making great profits as of now. What we need is a conservative philosophy of investment, and that can get us out of these trying times. Cash is trash. Do not save money, because we know that in this stage of an economy, if you save money, money would lose its value very fast. At least for 3-4 more years, there would be. Because the classical case of economists or the countries that have done in the 300-400 years, if you read the economic history, would be they go for what? A fiscal stimulus, then they go for a monetary stimulus. Then the third thing is the devaluation of the currency. Of course, I wouldn't believe that would happen now. So this is it. So in brief, I will just point out to you, it would be good to look at it in 1 minute. It would be the IT industries that are doing well, the agro-based industry, because this is the livable part of the thing, the basic necessities of life. The FMCG part of it is doing well. Some sectors of the pharma industry are doing well. And manufacturing at all, it's lost its game heavily. The other losers would be the hospitality business, the tourism business. So we'll have to make ourselves very clear in the perception of how do we invest now in this stage and for the future period of time. Thank you very much, Professor Padi. Thank you very much, the university, for inviting me for this deliberation.
Thank you, sir, for such wonderful talk. We are indebted to you for joining us in this webinar. And now we invite Dr. Sushant Kumar Mahapatra, sir, and introducing him as he is the Associate Professor of ICFI Business School, Hyderabad. He received his PhD degree in economics from Madras Institute of Development Studies, Chennai, prior to joining IBS, Hyderabad. We have served many institutions like Department of Economics, School of Business, Lovely Professional University, Department of Management, Amrit Vishwavidyalaya, Kochi Institute of Financial Management and Research, JRD Tata Eco-Technology Center, MS Swaminathan Research Foundation, and most importantly, he has published many papers in Scoopux Index journals and referred journals. He is the author of books and journals, edited volumes, conference proceedings, and working papers in area of ecology and environmental studies, environmental management and sustainable development, economic environment policy, and etc. etc. Professor Sushant Mahapatra has done his postdoctoral fellowship.
ఏకాంత్కి ఫోన్ చేసిన నేను లేనని చెప్పు. ఏకాంత్ రెడ్డి నీకు ఫోన్ వాడు నన్ను ఏదో పని చెప్తాను నాకు.
Postdoctoral fellowship from European Commission, has received the prestigious European Commission postdoctoral fellowship. Erasmus Mundus India, European Union second program, carried out at Department of Economic Science, University of Bologna, Italy. So now I request Dr. Sushant Mahapatra sir to deliver his speech.
Thank you.
Dr. Sushant Mahapatra sir.
Yes, sir. Is it audible?
Yes, audible, sir.
Can I request the host? Because I am sharing this screen because host is disabled. Can I request to the host?
Yes, sir.
I am sharing the screen.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes.
Can you?
Yes, yes, sir.
It is disabled.
Sir. Sir.
One second.
Ashini.
Yes, now it's okay. One second.
What a minute, sir.
Host is disabled. Yes, now it's okay. Because I can see professor's other slides.
Yes,
I am
yes.
sharing the screen. Host is disabled. Can you make active?
Wait, sir. Wait, sir.
Yeah, now it's okay. Now I'm sharing. Yeah, yeah. Now it's okay. Is it able to see the slides?
No. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Continue.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Sir. Right.
So good afternoon, everyone. So it's a great pleasure to be invited for such an important event on international seminar on these important issues on the global economy and what is the impact to the India as well as the global. So I'm thankful to Professor Sunil Pade and other organizing committee for inviting and distinguished all the speakers, panelists, and organizing committee member of the Indian Economic Associations, all the viewers, scholars, students, faculty from the different organizations. So I'll try to speak in a very short time because we are running behind the schedule. What is the impact of the COVID-19, particular to the labor market, and how it's affecting to the particular to the migrant situations, how the migrant worker play an important in this context. So briefly, I'm trying to give a brief introductions with respect to the global, national and regional level lockdown, then specific to the unemployment, how unemployment and uncertainty was one of the important debateables in the current context. Then the plight of migrant workers with a brief outline. Yes, some music is coming. Can somebody mute? Yeah, thank you. So I'll try to give a reverse migrations, lives and livelihood. The debate is going on, and what is its economic impact. Now, what are the issues before the government, whether it is central government, state government, or the regional and the different panchayat level? What the government has done in most of the states, and what are the strategic forward that is required in order to solve these issues. So in the introductory remark, as in the conference brochure, already detailed mentions about this global pandemic lockdown, and how it's affecting the overall economy. Professor Ghanashyam Sim, Professor Das, Professor Constance, Professor Pant already discussed and touched upon all these related. So I'll skip all this background and directly I'll go to the labor economics, instead of spending again same time on these global lockdowns. So as we already know earlier, up to today, up to yesterday, 20 crore 40 lakhs 5,000 people worldwide affected, and they reported by the WHO, and 3.67% is the death rate. I will compare the India, the death rate is 2.8%. So in the current context, particular, there are so many debatable issues regarding the forecast of this economic growth. So International Monetary Fund has already made different expectations on the 3% decrease in terms of the growth. And it is worse than the 2008 and 9, the global financial crisis we have seen. And Professor Rangarajan and Professor D.K. Srivastav already estimated 4.4% of the growth in 1920 and the 2.94% to the 2021. So IMF also projected 1.9%. So these are all the quick economic background with respect to the global economy as well as the Indian economy. So in this context, global, national and regional level lockdown has started everywhere, and the issues of economic deteriorations of the country have become the great debate, and among the academicians, social scientists, researchers and policymakers to discuss this COVID-19 in different cases. So we have seen so many writings, so many webinars, so many conferences and debate and discussings with respect to the health disaster to economic disasters, and how it's affected the livelihood after the 25th March lockdown. So you will see the unemployment and uncertainty, how it's one of the important in the context of the labor economics, labor market. So ILO, International Labor Organizations, already expected that 195 million of workers will be wiped out by end of the 2020, and 81% of the global workforce of the 3.3 billion are affected by full or partial work of this. So India unemployment rate, as we have seen fluctuations, March, April, May, June, July and August. So we have seen how the unemployment rate, as we depicted from the CMI, Center for Monitoring Indian Economy. So we have seen in the 27th June, it was 11% of the total unemployment. Now it is reduced to almost 9.4% in the current up to yesterday. So millions of people losing jobs, factories shut down, and due to the business haphazardly working. So a lot of literatures has examined the study of the preventive measures. Professor Subramaniam and Professor Rai has already talked in the many contexts. Professor Arun Kumar, Professor Warwick, and Professor Rosen Fernando, Baldwin, and all of them already discussed. We are not going to the detailed literatures. So what large scale movement of people has been mass migration, particular to the partition of 1947s. We have seen how in the human tragedy is one of the best. So it is quoted in the BBC how this pandemic lockdown is one of the mass migration after the 1947s. So in this context, we are trying to see how the migrants are making the plights. As you know, 37% are internal migrants in the Indian context, and 30% of the migrants are at the age of 15 to 29, and 15 million are migrant children. So these are some of the informations available and we know from the census 2011. And they are leaving the cities across the country due to the jobless and helpless due to lack of social security, and particular to the two-thirds of the internal migrants who are concentrated in rural area and one-third in the urban area. So these are all the facts and figures all available from the census, CMI and other NSS data, and how the male dominate the interstate and inter-districts. So females dominate are one of the important in the streams of migrations, and we need to understand what is the nature and magnitude of these crises and take the appropriate measures to revive the economy and save the lives and livelihood of the millions. So COVID-19, the plight of migrants workers. So we are trying to see how the different state has approached. So many state government has no database for the migrants, as no Aadhaar card. This is already debated and discussed in many times during April, May, June, July. Still, some people do not have Aadhaar card, and the migrants live in between urban uncertain and the stable homeland. In between, amidst in between there. So migrants sending remittances to the family, and now they are become the burden of the family. So whenever we are situating this and how they are treated as a carrier of the disease, and hence building with the community will be a challenge for these migrants. So communities and insecurity, security, how we are planning and discussing. So as we already know from various literatures, as we students of economics, from the labor economics, from the migration theory and all the development economic theory. So we have seen how the reverse migrations affecting the life and livelihood due to their feeling of insecurity. So we are disputed in between the life versus the livelihood. So this pandemic, desperate reverse migration and huge starvations on rail track and highway, and how the debate on the signing India. So we have seen so many media, so many writings on the signing India and desperate migrations, how reverse migration is going. So in this context, so many state of internal migrants we are depicting, and we are looking from UP, Bihar, Rajasthan, Andhra, Chhattisgarh, Odisha, and Uttarakhand, and some cases of Tamil Nadu. So the problem for the destination state, like for example, Odisha, Chhattisgarh, MP, UP, West Bengal, Bihar, these are all the destination state. And when this spreading infection of new area and how the issues became the cane. So there are issues in terms of the quarantine facility for the migrants at the panchayat level, and how they are enrolling in the PDS, public distribution system, and how creation of job to ensure their food security. So some challenges we are getting with respect to the different situation over this period of time. So you can see there are some major states where migration to and migration from the different selected states, as we can see from the census 2011. So majority of these states, mostly Maharashtra, UP, West Bengal, Gujarat, Kerala, Punjab, and Assam. And migrations from other states, there are migration to and from to UP, Bihar, Odisha, and West Bengal. So we have seen how these 45 crore, all the total migrants are migrating from and to from these major states. And we also know how the inter-district and interstate migrants from different census of India, 91 census, 2001 census, 2011 census. So you can see the inter-district migrant is higher in all this case compared to the interstate migrants in all the census informations, whatever the available data. Similarly, there are some analysis has been docs and discussed in the 91, 2001, 2011 census. What are the main reasons for these migrations? Either through the share of the migrants, they are migrating either to work and business, or due to the education, due to the marriage, after birth, or there are some other reasons in different cases. So in this context, on some secondary informations available from the state, census, NSS, and other sources, now let us discuss what are the issues before the government, whether the state government, central government, regional, what are the main issues. So to deal with this situation, desperate return of migrants, spreading infection of the new area. So that was discussed a lot in April, May, and June. And the issues related to surveillance and screening, quarantine, that was also big issues. Then the issues related to safety net and income source for those informal workers who have lost their job. So these are some of the issues of many state government, how to map the skills of these migrants. So main challenges and issues now we are facing, mapping of all these migrants, providing employment, how it can be done. And now what the government has done. So you will see the plethora of information, plethora of media related, some write-ups. We have seen what the government has done. And these are all summary and some important on the context of different states. So government took 53 days to set up this National Migrant Information System. Though started in March 25, but it took a lot of time to set up this. And relief package, as we already discussed in earlier, 5 kg of wheat and rice for 2 months through the state government. And government also announced initially 3,500 crore, 40,000 crore to the migrants, and how to provide the MGNRGA and to return for these migrants. So there are some shelter and food to the standard workers. In some government, they provided train and bus services. Some in quarantine center established at the panchayat level for the 14 days of the organization. So these are all happens during this time, and what are the steps taken by the government. Now, what issues and challenges and what strategies and way forward required for all these challenges to COVID outbreak. So short-term measures may be looked into to make the quality database of the migrant workers. You can see the database available on the migrant workers, whether it is state level, block level, taluk level, panchayat level, hardly we find any miss. And the figures are different from all the different sources. So the quality database for all this is necessary, and complete registrations. Those who have done in the registrations in May, June, July, still the migrant worker need to be done at the proper level. And enrollment of the migrants in PDS to ensure that food security is satisfying. And there should be emphasis on the digital administrative system, smart card, like you have JAM, Jandhan, Aadhaar, mobile payment, infrastructure for the transportability, and one nation, one card, the different state government to ensure the food security. And apart from these short-term measures, some of the medium-term measures with respect to the MGNREJ and how to provide them card in any part of the country, and how the National Migrant Worker Commissions at the state central level and state migration commission at the state level can be done. So these are all the influence of the sanity of the culture, lifestyle, and approach of the local people, which needs to be addressed at the engaging with community. And community is on this important in terms of the livelihood security, food security, and all this juncture. So apart from these medium-term measures, we are maybe thinking to provide asset creations projects under the MGNREJ. Many blocks, many panchayat level asset creation activity under MGNREJ for income generating activity is going on, but some of the state yet to done. So it required to design the employment generation activity at the MSME, which demand can be increased for the jobs, and processing some value additions like stitching, etc. involved in terms of the skilled and unskilled workers. And we need to also provide the entrepreneurship development with respect to all the strategy for the development. So these are all the issues and strategy need to be taken into consideration. Here I am stopping. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
Thank you, Professor Mahapatra Shah, for your wonderful deliberation. And now we have question and answer hour. And there are some questions asked by participants. Now over to Dr. S.K. Maji sir.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon to all of you, sir. Actually, there are a few questions from the participants. And first question is from Dr. Sipra Sagarika, who is one of the colleagues. And it is to our distinguished panelist, Professor Constance. Question is, with this online web of network society, as explained by Manuel Castells, do you think that information superhighways can take proper care of children and women associated with the education system? Over to you, madam. Over to Professor Constance.
Could you please say your question again? I couldn't hear it.
Okay, ma'am. The question is, madam, like this. With this online web of network society, as explained by Manuel Castells, do you think that information superhighways can take proper care of children and women associated with the education system?
So again, the connection is just not completely clear, but I think you're asking about participation of women and children.
Yes.
Yes. Well, so once again, as I said in my presentation, the internet, computers, the World Wide Web are really great equalizers. You know, they extend democracy and participation greatly. And so I think that's the biggest advantage when it comes to really anyone, not just women and children participating, but anybody who is marginalized in some way has a role to play in contemporary society by virtue of our connectivity. So all it takes is access to computers. Now, with that said, there are many people who, for one reason or another, don't have access, whether it's because of the, they can't afford the cost of computer or internet access, or there might be social or cultural reasons that they can't participate, and those are problems to be solved. But overall, I think it's very positive to think about how we can increase participation by everybody who has access.
Thank you, madam. Thank you for your kind information with regard to the education system. Thank you, madam. Thank you.
Thanks.
Then another questions from one of the participants, and it is to our distinguished panelist, Professor Kavidas. Question is like this: which sectors of the economy are likely to recover fastest? Which is the slowest? Over to Professor Kavidas. Oh, okay. Kevisar is not here actually. Now another question. It is to our distinguished panelist, Professor Pant. Sir, question is like this. Which sector are mostly affected on COVID-19 on tourism sector? And with regard to the tourism sector, there is another participant actually. They wanted to know that in which way tourist sector has been affected by the COVID-19. It is over to Professor Pant.
Yeah, I got the question. Yeah, the question I believe is about the tourism sector, how badly it is impacted, right? Okay.
Yes, sir.
You see, so all facets of tourism have been affected. If you take even the hospital tourism or the people who used to come for medical tourism for getting the ailments, that's also affected. See, what the COVID has done is it has stopped the movement of people. Now, the first sector to be hit would be, of course, the tourism. The people who come for maybe leisure, who come for travel, maybe who come for education, or maybe who come for so many varied reasons, maybe for a job, or maybe for even medical chances. The entire structure has been pulled down as of now. Slowly, that's being revived, slowly. But the hospital industry, the hospitality, the hotels, the restaurant, in fact, everything that you see under the umbrella of tourism and hospital, the entire business is disrupted. So we can't per se say that there's a sector worst affected and there's a sector okay which is going on. Everything you see, the inland, say transportation, the roads, the railway services, they are running at almost 50% or 40% of their capacity. The airways also are running at only essential services are doing their part. So it says it's badly impacted. Yes, and there's no other answer for it. And how do we come out of it would be gradual.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind information. Then another question. It is to our distinguished panelist, Professor Singh, sir, the president of IE. So question is like this: how can the issues of livelihood of migrants labor solve? Over to Professor Singh, President IE. Hello, sir. Okay. Hello, sir. Is it audible? Hello, sir. Is it audible, sir?
It is me.
Yeah.
Yeah, what is that? I couldn't get you.
Okay, sir. Question is, sir, how could be the how could be I mean, how can the issues of labor migrants livelihood
No, yeah.
solve?
In fact, you see, in the Bihar and UP, lot of migrant timber has come. So migration took place in a big way. And now reverse migration is going on in the sense that the construction area or the area where the demand of labor is very high. So they now attract the labor here from here to go back there and giving a lot of things like that of the air ticket, family maintenance and all that. So this is a peculiar picture that is coming up. Now local level skill are being provided, employment are being generated here also, and they are being required there also. So this is very dynamic situation that is coming up because of this pandemic situation. We will come in a different way to cope up in a way that it can create a balance between the two, because the demand of labor is there very high, and here they are getting employment that they have got the home and all the privileges of the rural, the home seek and all that they will be getting. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you for your kind information. Then, sir, last question to our distinguished panelist, Professor Mahapatra. It is, sir, what are the remedial steps as COVID-19 affected Indian economy? Over to Professor Mahapatra.
Yes. So, actually, I was speaking from the context of the labor economics. So I'll speak only through the labor related, because overall economy I'm not going to debate, because other panelists has addressed this, so I'll not cross the boundary. So with respect to this labor and all the plight of the migrant laborer, how the government should plan, what are the issues. So I'll give just 1 or 2 minutes based on that. So there are many mid-term measures as well as short-term measures. In the mid-term measures, government should also focus with respect to the different digital administrative system, one nation's one card, then national migrant worker commissions, then state level worker commissions. In addition to that, some employment generation activities in order to the current situation and focusing on the entrepreneurship development. As you have seen in the OLM, Odisha Livelihood Mission, they are taking some Unnati program, Unnati. So in the different block level and panchayat level, they are trying to do through the different cases. So some of the state also doing. So in that case, so that COVID-19 outbreak we may reduce. Thank you. Yes.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for your kind information. Now over to Dr. Padi.
Thank you, Sanjeev sir. I'm grateful to all the distinguished guests, Professor Singh sir, Professor K.V. Das sir, Professor Devarak ma'am, Professor Pan, Professor Mahapatra, for accepting our request and have a fruitful discussion on various issues confronting the COVID-19 pandemic. Now I request my colleague, Dr. Gitanjali Panda ma'am, to give a vote of thanks. Professor Dr. Gitanjali Panda ma'am.
Thank you, sir. Respected Honorable President of Indian Economic Association, Ghanashyam Narayan Singh sir, and all the office bearers of Indian Economic Association, and respected speakers of the today occasion, Professor Constant Diver, Professor University of Panikkad, and Professor Kumravara Das, and Professor Anup Pant of Sarda University, and Professor Sushant Kumar Mishra of ICFA University. It's my privilege to have been asked to give a vote of thanks on this occasion, and I extend my hearty vote of thanks to all the speakers of today. And at first, I must extend my sincere sense of appreciation to Professor Ghanashyam Narayan Sir, the Honorable President of Indian Economic Association, for extending his collaboration with us, which will help us to bring into a public platform, and his views on present pandemic situations. Particularly, he discussed about the bleeding of our economy now, but we have to convert these challenges into an opportunity by giving greater importance to rural economy. That is one of the major solutions. We have to localize the production, and your ideas are well appreciated, sir. And today's speaker, the international speaker, we are extremely grateful to Professor Constant Diver, University of Panikkad, for her views. She has explained very well how the present situation is going to affect our culture and education system. And definitely, we are basically human capital based industry, so we respond slowly to the system changes. And definitely, because universities are the medium through which culture is spread, it's going to be affected in the long run. And particularly, the paradigm shift has taken place in the university, because she discussed it very beautifully, the historical development of internet education as a mode of teaching, but it has to be now used, expanded to its full possibility. And this is a very new idea, sir, madam. We are extremely grateful to listen to you, and your slides will be very much useful to us. And now I extend sincere thanks to our former Vice Chancellor Kumravara Das, and who is a teacher of many of us. And he has covered a great deal of things, the different aspects of the different sectors, and particularly he is basically a socialist, so he has given importance to the social orientation of the market economy, and he has the emphasis on three aspects. One is the problem of COVID, problem of climate change, and the economic crisis that we are facing. According to his view, private sector cannot address all these problems. So both private sector and the government have to work very hard to bring the changes. And we are extremely thankful to Anup Pant. He has discussed the various policy impact, that is quantitative easing of monetary policy, the fiscal stimulus that is going to bring changes. And also he discussed about the stock market problem. And lastly, we must thankful to Sushant Kumar Mahapatra of discussing the most important problem of today's society, that is the problem of the migrant laborers. Sir, you have given a very quantitative view of this situation, the uncertainties, and also you have given strategies that are to be followed in future to face this problem of reverse migration. And we are extremely grateful to you for your views. And lastly, I would like to thank to our HOD who has supported us to complete the today's seminar. And we are extremely inspired by your great words, sir. And I must thank our research scholar Manoj, who has been always with us to give all technical support. And to all my colleagues, we are a group. We are basically three disciplines, that is economics, sociology, and political science, and all are interlinked, and we all faculty are integrated to bring the occasion a success. Thank you, sir. We are extremely thankful to all of you.
Thank you, madam. Once again, thank all the distinguished speakers, Indian Economic Association, all the dignitaries, students, my colleagues, technical person Manoj, Sipra Sagarika ma'am, Smruti ma'am, for supporting us and making this program is very successful. I am grateful to Professor Singh sir, Professor Khan sir, Professor Das sir, Professor Mahapatra, Professor Divans, and this international conference comes to an end. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Oh, भैया कंटेंट